Welcome to the Menopause Queen. This, as you know, is a channel that I have put together for those going through the menopause, and quite often on my Instagram there's quite a lot of joyous videos. You can go and check out my Instagram and you'll see that. Charlotte Saint-Jean, the Menopause Queen. I do a podcast with my neighbour Jill called La Pause Menopause, which is usually quite funny and quite a romp through the menopause and everything that entails. The good and the bad and the ugly, if you like. But I really wanted to, in this video, focus on a completely different and quite serious subject. And it is the subject of grief. And I want to approach it on several levels. So one is the grieving that we do when we go through the menopause, because we're grieving the person that we have been, aren't we? We are grieving all of the good and the bad and the ugly of that. We are grieving because we know we can't get it back. We are grieving our youth, we are grieving our vitality, we are grieving our body, we are grieving all these different aspects of ourselves. And no one really tells you about this in the menopause, or even on the run up to it. It's a little bit like when your children leave home. If you have had children and they get to a point, although I've been told in the UK more and more the kids aren't leaving, but anyway, they tend to in France, and which is where I live. But it's when the kids leave home and you've not prepared for it, and all of a sudden you're grieving that great big empty space and hole that is there, and that is very definitely felt in your body. So this is what we go through as well when we're going through the menopause. We have a definite physical reaction to everything, to this grieving, this mourning. We have an emotional, we have an energetic, we have a full-blown mourning, grieving period. And that period can be short or incredibly long. It can go on for a jolly long time. And I think it took me ages to put an actual word to it and say, this is grief. This is what grieving is. This is what it's all about when you lose something. And what happened when I went through the menopause is it suddenly made me realize that there were stages to grieving and that I had been through them before. And that because I had been through these stages before, I had an inbuilt resilience within me. And I compare this to the kintsugi bowls, you know, the Japanese bowls that are very beautiful once they've been broken and stuck together again with the golden glue. You can see the glue, you can see the cracks, you know that they're more fragile, and yet they're stronger, worth more, they're more beautiful. And I think that's what we are as women when we go through the menopause. We become all of the cracks that we are and that we have been through. We transform into the woman that we know we have always been, but possibly have never dared to be. I think that's the interesting part of the menopause. You accept eventually, and I'm going to go into this in the 5 pillars of resilience, you accept eventually who you are. And you actually don't really care if anyone else likes you or not during this phase. And then there is a point where you suddenly go, but I can live in joy and abundance. I can rise up from these rooted base elements of myself, and I can live again. So there's like a curve that goes on during the menopause. I speak the odd word of franglais every now and then. I've lived in France for 25 years. Sometimes it's very difficult to find the words in English now. But I think this is a very real thing that we go through. And when I was going through the menopause, I actually wrote this book, which was incredibly expensive therapy, if I think back, because I self-published it. I published it with Pegasus Publishing, which is a UK-based publishing house. So you can find it on their website, you can find it on Amazon, you can find it everywhere that you want to look for your books, basically. It even has a copy in the British Library, I am told. So I wrote this book and I kind of co-funded it with Pegasus. I haven't sold a great number of them. I hope I will sell more. And I feel my time is coming for that, because poetry's on the up, isn't it? And this book is the 5 pillars of resilience, because each chapter is a channeling of what I went through. And it's not just during the menopause. I was going through lots of levels of grieving as I hit the menopause. My partner, I have a lovely man in my life now. It hasn't always been easy for us. Stepchildren is never easy from both sides. Baggage you carry from past relationships and marriages is never easy. And particularly my previous relationship ended very abruptly and quite violently, and I had suffered during the relationship, and then my ex-partner decided that that was enough for him and he took his own life. And that leaves you in an entrails of grief that I don't think anyone knows how to deal with, and I don't think any one grieving process post-suicide is the same. But I went through a whole period of very dirty, dark, horrible feelings. And then as I approached the menopause, and I was just about kind of getting myself out of this hole, I got diagnosed with skin cancer. And I love the sun. I love the outdoors. I'm looking at the sun as I speak now, but it's another really quite hot day. And I have to be careful. I can't just go out glibly in it. And I used to. I really did, believe me. And I went through a whole grieving process of not being able to heal myself in the sun, because I realized that I probably hid quite a lot of things under a tan as well. And I could no longer do that. I could no longer replenish my batteries in the full-on sunshine of outside. And then I hit the menopause. So I had like a triple whammy of all sorts of time capsule things going on. And of course, you actually, when you hit the menopause, you also come face to face with your past and many of the micro traumas or the bigger traumas that you have been through in your lifetime. And it all sort of comes to light in this period of transformation. And so I wrote this poetry book to heal myself, to write down what was going on in my head, to regroup myself. And I realized that there were kind of 5 stages, the 5 pillars of resilience, I call these. The first one is anchoring. The second one is accepting. The third is aligning or realigning. And the fourth is abundance. I could sort of add love and joy into that, but abundance. And the fifth is arise or ascension. So you can see there are A letters. And I explain in the book, in Resilience, that my name is Charlotte Saint-Jean and has been for many, many years now, but it isn't my maiden name. My maiden name is Charlotte Allen. And I wanted to honour the A in my maiden name. I was also in my 50th year when I wrote this book, or when I started to think about this book. So I wanted to honour the 5, so that's why there are 5 pillars. And the titles just kind of came to me because it was so obvious to me. Those are the stages that you go through. When a disaster happens, when a challenge happens, when you're hit with news of a death or of an illness, there's a kind of anchoring down. And that can literally be disbelief to start off with, and then maybe lying literally on the floor. But there's a kind of grounding element. Everything kind of stops. Everything regroups. And there is no timeline to the rest of what goes on, right? The next stage is acceptance, but that can take a while. And I could also add probably a 6th A word, which is anger, into the mix there. I think there's often a lot of anger that gets mixed up into the anchoring and the accepting, or before you get to the acceptance, or maybe when you're in the acceptance, there's a lot of anger. I remember going into the trees and shouting a lot at nature to get it out of my system. I just did not understand a lot of what was going on. You know, coupled with all the hormonal differences within my body at the same time. And then once you go through the phase of acceptance, you go through the phase of alignment. And this is, I think, the very crucial, pivotal point in the middle of everything. And I often say it's about realigning. It's not just aligning. You have the opportunity for once in your life to not necessarily align with the person that you have been up until that point. You can choose for once to leave things behind you. You can choose for once to align or to realign with a new version of yourself, or maybe with the version that you've always actually been, but just never dared to fully be. Because we put on so many layers. Jung talks of this all the time. We put on so many layers due to society, due to family, due to protection mechanisms, whatever they might be. And when you start to reach the menopause and the midlife era, you start to turn around and go, but hold on a minute, that's not me. That veil, that layer is actually not who I truly am. And as such, you go through this whole period of realigning, of regrouping, of re-establishing the connection with yourself. I'm just going to navigate my dog for a moment. Are we going to come down from here? Yeah, are we coming down or are we going to stay there? I'm going to leave him there for the minute. So this realigning phase is vital. Actually, you can come down. No, you can come down. Come in, Reggie. There we go. Okay, I'm going to cut that bit. So this realigning phase is vital because this is the pivotal transforming point of what is going on, right? This is the point, the tipping point almost, of do I accept who I am or do I change and realign? I'm going to move that out of the way, aren't we? There we go. So that you can truly become the queen that you've already been, that you are, but you can actually really incarnate that person. And I'm weighing my words here deliberately because I think it's important to spend some time in that middle ground of transformation. Like I said, there's no timeline on any of this, and there shouldn't be. But I think if you let yourself truly feel what you want to be becoming, what you need to be becoming, it becomes obvious after a while. And then the layers can establish themselves, the foundational pivotal points can establish themselves. And then you can start to live in abundance and joy again. And why can you do that? Because things start to flow more freely, because you've established your roots, you've accepted who you are, you have realigned with the version of you that you want to inhabit, because you've chosen this body. Your spirit has incarnated here to live a life that you have chosen. But sometimes you get deviated off that path. You just get pushed out of the way. And so the joy and the abundance becomes your own. You own it. It's completely authentically you. And then you can rise into who you are, the queen that you are, which is why this channel is called the Menopausal Queen, which is why I have a whole approach to the menopause and to coaching women through this phase, because I've been there, I'm relatable, I'm not some American guru standing on a stage professing to know everything. I don't, but I've been through stuff. I've just been through it, and I've come out the other side, and I haven't done it that badly. And I think that's the thing that we forget to do. We forget to celebrate the joyous next stage. And that's the point about grief. There has to be, at some point, there has to be what the Irish women would call the keeners. The keeners were the people that you would pay to come round and kind of scream for you. I think during the menopause, you quite want some keeners to come round and scream for you. My dog's now starting to get bored because I'm filming this for you and it's starting to go on too long. But the keeners are something that I think I would have employed at certain times to just scream and shout for me and just get it all out. But you also need to feel it. You need to go through it, you need to feel that transition, and you need to just like spit it out and turn into the person that you want to be afterwards. So I think that's my message about grief. Go through the stages, welcome and accept the stages, so that you can then stand in your truth, in your alignment, and in the shine and the queendom that you can now completely create.